The House will come to order. Members will be at their seats. The clerk has opened the roll. You may record your presence. Please rise and give your attention to our House chaplain and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Representative Miller.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, through this psalmist, you have encouraged us to seek you, to seek your face. If we do so, we can be confident that we will see the goodness of the Lord. In these unprecedented, discouraging, and disruptive times, I'm sure it's been especially frustrating for our leaders to have to work on such serious issues without being able to sit across from each other and have face-to-face conversations. To have to do most work virtually can be exasperating and perhaps somewhat unsatisfying. Please continue to give our leaders the strength, determination, and encouragement to work within the unusual circumstances and be able to resolve the differences to come to decisions. In your name I pray, amen.
Have all members had the opportunity to record the presence? The clerk will close the roll and record the attendance. Introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill number 2415 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, and that concerning the State Fire Marshal, relating to law enforcement powers thereof, fire equipment standards requiring investigation of fire deaths. House Bill number 2416 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, and that concerning governmental response to certain emergencies relating to the Kansas Emergency Management Act, modifying the procedure of the declaration and extension of a state of disaster emergency, limiting powers granted to the governor during a state of disaster emergency, authorizing the Legislative Coordinating Council and the Legislature to take certain actions related to a state of disaster emergency. House Bill number 2417 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, and that concerning alcoholic beverages relating to retailers, clubs, and drinking establishments, allowing the removal of beer and cereal malt beverage from licensed premises. House Bill number 2418 by the Committee on Taxation, and that concerning property taxation relating to time for payments, persons 65 years of age and older. House Bill number 2419 by the Committee on Appropriations, and that concerning the Kansas Board of Barbering relating to licensure and regulation of barbers and fees.
Change of reference. House Bill 2119 was withdrawn for the Committee of the Whole and referred to the Committee of K-12 Education Budget. The chair recognizes the Majority Leader for motion resolved to the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of considering those items under the heading of General Orders.
You've heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion carries. The chair appoints Representative Blake Carpenter to the chair of the Committee of the Whole.
Good morning, body. For the first item of business, it's House Bill 2262. For the purposes of carrying House Bill 2262, the chair recognizes Representative Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee. House bill. Mr. Chair, there were no amendments.
Please continue.
Thank you. House Bill 2262 comes to us from the Kansas Funeral Directors Association through the Committee on Health and Human Services. That's the committee that takes care of you prenatal, postmortem, and now cremation. We take care of it all. The cremation document. The bill, proposed legislation would amend current statutes to provide that if death occurs outside the state of Kansas and the law of that state does not require a permit for cremation, then they may proceed with cremation within a reasonable amount of time. Presently, the process is if you die outside the state, and that state may not require a permit, when they bring the body back to the state of Kansas, then they must get the coroner to sign off on it and get a permit. This bill would eliminate that requirement. For example, Missouri does not require a permit. So it would help the funeral home directors in the Kansas City area should a resident die in Missouri, they bring him back to Kansas for burial or for cremation, they could proceed. This bill also does a couple of other things. There's a requirement in Kansas law for the monthly reports of dead bodies prepared for burial, and they are filed with the Office of Vital Statistics. Since the state of Kansas has gone to an electronic death registration system, that is no longer necessary. So that strikes that part of the statute. Mr. Chair, I do have an amendment, though.
The amendment appears short. The clerk will read.
Line 13, page 2, line 13, after A by inserting 1. In line 22 by striking and as a part of.
Do you wish to explain your amendment, Representative?
Thank you. This was a technical amendment brought by the revisor's office this morning. It renumbers the paragraphs. It's a very small change, but they wanted to make sure it was correct when we brought it to the floor. So I'll stand for questions on the amendment.
Does any member wish to speak to the amendment? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
I close on my amendment.
You've heard the motion to amend by Representative Barker. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes.
Thank you. I think I've taken care of most of my testimony as to the contents of the bill. I would note that there were one proponent, which was Pam Scott of the Kansas Funeral Directors Association. There were no neutrals, and there were no opponents. There's also no physical note to this. With that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions.
Does any member desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The carrier of the bill did a great job explaining it. It's a fairly simple bill. It makes things more streamlined in Kansas, and I would urge your support. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2262 favorably.
You've heard the motion by Representative Barker to report House Bill 2262 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. The next item of business is House Bill 2237. For the purposes of carrying House Bill 2237, the chair recognizes Representative Wassinger.
Mr. Chair, there were no amendments to this bill.
Please continue.
House Bill 2237 extends the sunset program for the rural opportunity zones from FY 2021 to FY 2023. It extends the student loan forgiveness program that it provides, as well as the income tax credit that's administered under the rural opportunity zones to tax year 23. It also extends the annual reporting to the Senate Committee of Assessment and Taxation and the House Committee on Taxation that includes how many residents applied for this tax credit. This bill is needed particularly for people that live in border communities. I believe there are 66 counties. Is that correct? 77. So there are no opponents, there are no amendments, and are there any questions? I'll stand for questions.
Does any member desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Hsu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill essentially just served as a backup. There was some concern in our caucus about just the overall mixed results of the rural opportunity zone programs, and then those were heard. But we just wanted to make sure that if for some reason we did have to go ahead and adjourn because of COVID or some other reason, that the rural counties who are using the current program and are using it well, and there are several that are using it very well, that program is interrupted for them. But there is another bill coming down the pipeline, but this is just a backup to that bill. So I would urge your support on this. Thank you.
For further discussion, the chair recognizes Representative Newland. Never mind. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
Mr. Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2237 favorable for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative Wassinger to report House Bill 2237 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. The next item of business is Senate Bill 27. For the purposes of carrying Senate Bill 27, the chair recognizes Representative Newland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were no amendments.
Please continue.
House Bill 27, or Senate Bill 27, came out of the State and Committee of Federal and State Affairs for the Senate through the House Ag Committee. SB 27 would extend the sunset dates for certain funds and advisory board and operators' ability to apply for funds relating to underground storage tanks. The bill would also increase deductible amounts and liability and replacement limits for certain funds within the Kansas Storage Tank Act and are managed by the Department of KDHE. The technical changes for sunset dates and minimal funds, like I said, no amendments. Proponents who are the Kansas Cooperative Council, KDHE, Kansas Grain and Feed Association, and Fuel True. Now, there is a fiscal note of $141,500 decrease to the SGF, but that same amount would go into the storage tank fee fund and would be handled by KDHE. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for questions.
Does any member desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I stand in support of this bill. The $141,000 transfer is because this no longer will be a state general fund managed account, and that's why that is. But thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports SB 27 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative Newland to report Senate Bill 27 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes. The next item of business is House Bill 2254. For the purposes of carrying House Bill 2254, the chair recognizes Representative Turner.
Well, these are way too low. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were committee amendments. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes, and the committee report is adopted. Please continue, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 2254 comes to the floor from the Health and Human Services Committee. This is a bill concerning funeral arrangements. Specifically, it will increase the amount a person can place into an irrevocable prearranged funeral agreement from the current $7,000 up to $10,000. The $7,000 limit has not been increased since 2010, so needs increase to keep up with the cost of inflation. The bill was introduced to committee, had no limit on the amount, but through amendment, the committee felt that $10,000 was a reasonable limit and fair to all concerned. So as I mentioned, the bill was amended in committee. The sponsor and proponent of the bill was the Kansas Funeral Directors Association. There were no neutral and no opponents to the bill. And there's also no fiscal note or no fiscal effect on the state. So with that, I'm prepared to stand for questions.
Does any member desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, I must say you're looking a little stiff today. But really, you're doing a great job on this grave subject. Don't you think?
Well, if I'm looking stiff today, it's probably because my topic, and yes, I'm dying to get through it.
That's a killer answer. So do you know if you can pay with cryptocurrency?
Cryptocurrency, yes, I think you probably could, but honestly, funeral plan is the last thing, literally, that you'll need.
You're killing me. Serially, though, I possibly have an amendment for this one. I'm told that I can be a bit persuasive. Just give me a meowment to ask a quick question. Is there a cap on how many times you can pre-purchase a funeral?
Well, my initials are CAT, so I'm hoping I get all 9 of mine opportunities.
Yeah, so the reason I ask is that I have a family member, her name is Celeste. She's been drinking my wife's meow-teenies, but she likes them purred, not shaken. And I'm not kidding around here. We're concerned for her health. We don't want to pay for 9 prepaid funerals. It could be a catastrophe, don't you think?
Well, that scenario kind of freaks me out. How's that?
Representative, this is your first bill, I believe.
Yes, it is.
How do you like being around?
I enjoy it very much.
Who's your office mate?
My office mate is Brett Fairchild upstairs.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Welcome to the House.
Thank you. Well, with that, Mr. Chair, I
Hold on,
move that when the
Representative.
committee rises and reports that it reports
Representative,
House
hold on.
Bill 2254.
Representative, hold on. There's still other people who wish to speak.
I'm sorry.
Is there further discussion? Representative Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The carrier of this bill did a nice job. It simply moves the cap from $7,000 to $10,000. I would urge your support. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
All right. So with that, Mr. Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports that it report House Bill 2254 favorable for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative Turner to report House Bill 2254 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. The next item of business is House Bill 2191. For the purposes of carrying House Bill 2191, the chair recognizes Representative French.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise today to bring before the body for your consideration House Bill 2191 from the Corrections and Juvenile Justice Committee. There were no amendments.
Please continue.
House Bill 2191 increases the criminal penalties for two crimes, that of riot and that of incitement to riot, when the crime occurs in a correctional facility. Current law in KSA 216201 makes the crime of riot a Class A person misdemeanor and the crime of incitement to riot a severity level 8 person felony. This bill will increase the penalty for riot from the Class A person misdemeanor to a severity level 8 personal felony if the riot occurs in a correctional facility. It would also increase the penalty for the incitement to riot from a severity level 8 person felony to a severity level 6 personal felony if the incitement to riot occurs in a correctional facility. The bill defines correctional facility as a jail or correctional institutions as defined in KSA 75-5202. This includes all correctional facilities under the control of the Department of Corrections. There was proponent testimony from the Kansas Sheriff's Association, the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, and the Leavenworth County Attorney. There were no opponent testimony and no neutral testimony. The Kansas Sentencing Commission estimates the enactment of House Bill 2191 could increase the adult prison bed space requirement from 0 to about 3 cases over the next 10 years. The Department of Corrections indicated that the increase would have minimal effect on their operations and no physical effects. The Office of Judicial Administration indicated the bill would have negligible physical effects, and that could be absorbed with existing resources. With that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions.
Does any member desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Heiberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the carrier did a fine job of explaining the bill. It did have a surprising amount of discussion in our caucus, so I followed up on a couple things. As the carrier pointed out, the bed impact of this bill is minimal, projection of 1 to 3 increase by 2031. I also followed up with the Department of Corrections. They said that they were surprised by the bill, and they don't have a position on it at this point, but they do expect to support it on the Senate side. I don't see this bill having a very large effect one way or the other. I don't see that increasing these penalties is going to decrease the occurrence of prison riots, but I also don't see any compelling reasons to vote against the bill, so vote your conscience.
For further discussion, the chair recognizes Representative Owens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would the maker of the carrier of the bill stand for a question for me? I will. Thank you. You're not a freshman, are you?
I'm not a freshman.
You're not, but this is still your first bill, is that correct?
That is correct.
Excellent. Well, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for your work as a fellow incoming class member of 2019, and thank you for your service to this great state. Thank you.
For further discussion, the chair recognizes Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also rise in support of HB 2191. I want to remind folks that when we had riots at Norton, when we had riots at El Dorado, that there were state employees, corrections officers who were injured in those riots. The same thing can take place in your local county jail at any time. And if for no other reason, we ought to support this out of respect for our state corrections officers and our detention deputies. I therefore ask that you join me in voting aye on HB 2191. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
Thank you to the representatives for their comments and their support for this bill. It is always a pleasure to work with this committee. There's a bunch of very fine representatives on it. On April 9th, 2020, about 10 to 12 residents in C2 Cell House at Lansing Correctional Facility had a verbal confrontation with prison staff and refused to return to their cells. Up to 30 residents began threatening the unit's staff, and the staff had to withdraw to await further help. The inmates then commenced to damage or destroy personal prison property at the cost of about $23,000. Doesn't sound like much until you consider the fact that they had to call up an additional officers out of Lansing Correctional Facility, as well as from the El Dorado, Ellsworth, and Topeka correctional facilities to address the riot. Additional staff from the Hutchinson facility, local law enforcement and fire employees, and the Kansas Highway Patrol also had to be used to finally return all the inmates to their cells. I talked with the warden at Lansing Correction Facilities last week about this bill, and she fully supports the bill, saying that the current penalties are not severe enough to discourage this type of behavior, that dangers our prison staff and the public safety. We've been able to cut the LCF's correction officers' staffing requirement based on the fact of the new prison that just opened last year. However, it does result in less staff being on duty to handle riots like the one last year. With that, Mr. Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, that it reports House Bill 2191 favorable for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative French to report House Bill 2191 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes. This concludes our general orders. The chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we rise and report.
You've heard the motion to rise and report. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes.
Clerk will read the committee report.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole recommends House Bills 2237 and 2119 and Senate Bill 27 be passed. House Bills 2262 and 2254 be passed as amended.
Speaker recognizes Representative Blake Carpenter for a motion to adopt the Committee of the Whole report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
You've heard the motion to adopt the Committee of the Whole report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. Reports of standing committees, the clerk will read.
Committee on Agriculture recommends Senate Bill 40 be passed. Committee on Agriculture recommends Senate Bill 39 be passed. Committee on Children and Seniors recommends House Bill 2345 be amended. The bill be passed as amended. Committee on Insurance and Pensions recommends Senate Bill 29 be amended. The bill be passed as amended. Committee on Federal and State Affairs recommends House Bill 2252 be amended and the bill be passed as amended.
Are there announcements? Representative Jesse Burris will replace Representative Les Mason on the Commerce, Labor, and Economic Development Committee on Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021, for that day only. Representative Kathy Wolfmore will replace Representative Valdenia Wynn on the House K-12 Education Budget Committee Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021, for this day only. Representative Tom Sawyer will replace Representative Kathy Wolfmore on General Government Budget Committee today, Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021, for this day only. Speaker recognizes Representative Woodard for an announcement. You're first in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Democrats, we will have an agenda meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. via Zoom. You will get the email link. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Burrows.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wyandotte County delegation, at noon we have lunch at 152 South. It will also be Zoomed if you care to join us by Zoom. That contact is in your emails, but we do have a guest speaker today, Jeremy Blake with Charter Communications, and what they're doing in Wyandotte County, so please plan to attend. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Today in room 121 East, we'll have prayer right after committee. Everybody's welcome. Come and pray with us. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Representative Carlson. Representative O'Hobbesam on deck.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Everyone should have one of these on their desk. This was a mural that the City of Clay Center contracted with a professional, and it is being dedicated today. In fact, it was dedicated at 1 o'clock. We were all invited, but of course, during this time, there was no way possible that we could be there to make this dedication. But they have invited us to a casual dedication on Sunday, this coming Sunday, at 2 p.m. So any of you that would like to come and view this very impressive, beautiful mural that covers the whole side of a building, and of course, it's the picture of the flag atop Mount Suribachi on Iwo Jima. And I'm sure there's probably more than one person here, but I know that Representative Wheeler has stated that his father was there in that battle. This is, I think, a very emotional thing for all of us. It's one of the ways that a small rural town can honor its history and its fallen soldiers and everyone that was there before them and everyone that has been in battle after that. So if you could, please join us for a casual showing this Sunday at 2 p.m. and it is at 701 4th Street, Clay Center. And they also have other murals that they have done as well, but they are not dedicated to the armed services. And if you are unable to make it, WIBW and KSNT were both there today, and so you could probably catch it at the news. But we hope that you might be able to gather there and we share a prayer and a dedication to this wonderful mural. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Leader.
Representative O'Hobson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. South Central Delegation, we do have our luncheon today. Our luncheon will start at 12:15. It is the Mayor Summit. We have mayors from across our region that will be speaking with us today. Lunches will be available. You can send your office assistant down to 173 West to pick up box lunches. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow morning, there will be a legislative Bible study at 7 a.m. and 142 South. They'll be discussing rising to greatness and practicing integrity. Republicans, we will have calendar at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning via WebEx. Mr. Speaker, I move the House adjourn until Wednesday, February 24th at 11 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The House stands adjourned.